After everything we've been through, you're just walking away? Susan, they're right, we come from different worlds. After my boyfriend chose his family over me, I made him beg for me to come back. My name is Suzanne, and I'm 26 years old. I was naive enough to believe that love could bridge any gap. I grew up working multiple part-time jobs early in the morning and studying hard at night, while Austin grew up in a mansion with a silver spoon in his mouth and no financial worries. The day Austin chose his family over me still plays in my mind like a broken record. I can still hear the steady tick of the kitchen clock counting down the moments until my world shattered. The scent of fresh coffee from my shift earlier that morning clung to my clothes, mixing with the sterile, expensive cologne he wore, the same one I used to love. But tonight, it made my stomach turn. Austin, you can't just leave. My voice was barely above a whisper, but it felt like a scream inside my head. He didn't answer, just kept stuffing his neatly folded dress shirts into his leather suitcase, his movements mechanical, rehearsed. Like he'd been preparing for this moment long before I even saw it coming. I stepped closer, desperate to close the widening gap between us. After everything we've been through? You're just walking away? Finally, he looked up, his hazel eyes conflicted, but not enough. Susan, they're right. I flinched as if he'd slapped me. We come from different worlds, he continued, his voice tight like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. I tried to make them understand, but what? I cut in, the lump in my throat making it hard to breathe. But my family isn't wealthy enough? My father wasn't a CEO? My mother didn't host charity galas? His jaw tensed. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. No, I snapped. You don't understand. I loved you despite your family's money, not because of it. The doorbell rang and we both jumped. My stomach twisted. I already knew who it was. Shirley Dawson didn't even wait for an invitation. She swept into the apartment with the kind of presence that sucked all the air out of the room. Her perfectly tailored suit was pristine, not a single blonde hair out of place. She was the kind of woman who could make you feel small with just a glance. And that's exactly what she did to me. Darling, the car is waiting, she said smoothly, barely sparing me a glance. Her manicured nails tapped against her designer purse as if even standing in my apartment was an inconvenience. Your father is expecting us for dinner. My grip tightened around the coffee mug in my hands, my knuckles turning white. You should have seen this coming, dear, she added, turning her attention to me now, her smile razor sharp. Someone like you? Well, surely you knew this was temporary. Someone like me? I stepped forward, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. You mean someone who worked her way through college? Someone who knows what it's like to struggle? Someone common? Her voice was silky, almost pitying. We have certain standards to maintain, Susan. Surely you understand. The weight of my engagement ring suddenly felt unbearable. My hand trembled as I slipped it off and placed it on the kitchen counter. It made the softest sound when it landed, but in that moment, it was deafening. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I turned to Austin, who stood there, trapped between his mother and his suitcase, looking lost, looking small. I almost laughed at the irony of it. I understand that you're not the man I thought you were. Austin flinched. Susan? What? I cut him off, my voice sharper now, fueled by something I hadn't expected. Anger. Don't make this harder. You already made your choice, Austin. I turned back to Shirley and gave her a slow, deliberate smile. Congratulations, you won. Her smile widened, victorious. But remember this moment, I continued, stepping closer, lowering my voice, because one day you'll regret it. Shirley raised an eyebrow. Is that a threat? No. I let out a breath, feeling something inside me shift. It's a promise to myself. I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door, not sparing Austin another glance. If he had anything left to say, I didn't want to hear it. The moment I stepped outside, the cold night air hit me like a slap, and suddenly I could breathe again. Not when I heard Shirley's heels click against the hardwood floor. Not when I heard the low murmur of Austin's voice. Not even when the door shut behind me, sealing the life I had built with him inside. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called the only person I knew would understand. "He's gone," I said when Ashley picked up, my voice cracking on the last word. "I'm coming over," she said immediately. "Pack your bags, you're staying with me." I let out a shaky breath. "I can't just—" "Yes, you can," she cut me off, firm but gentle. "And you will. This isn't the end of your story, Susan. It's just the beginning." I wanted to believe her. As I drove away from the apartment I had once called home, I caught a glimpse of Shirley's sleek black town car in my rearview mirror, mother and son heading back to their privileged bubble, back to the life I was never supposed to belong to. They thought they had broken me, but they had only set me free. That night, curled up on Ashley's couch with a glass of wine in my shaking hands, I made myself another promise. I would rebuild my life, piece by piece, until the day came when Austin and his family would realize exactly what they had thrown away. "To new beginnings," Ashley said, raising her glass. I clinked mine against hers, my grip steady now. "To revenge," I murmured, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. And deep down, I knew this wasn't just a dream, it was a certainty, because the humble girl they had dismissed, she was about to become their worst nightmare. Rock bottom isn't a place, it's a state of mind. For me, it was Ashley's couch, the same ugly floral couch she'd had since college, the one with stuffing peeking out of the armrest. It was the pile of takeout containers on the coffee table. It was waking up at noon, feeling like my body was made of cement and realizing that for the first time in years, I had nowhere to be, no one waiting for me, no future that I could see beyond the next hour. Ashley never said, "I told you so." Never reminded me that she'd warned me about the Dawsons, about their world and the way they devoured people like me. She just let me grieve. But after 2 weeks of watching me exist in sweatpants, eating ice cream straight from the tub, she'd had enough. "You can't mope around my apartment forever," she declared one morning, yanking open the curtains and flooding the living room with unforgiving sunlight. "I'm not moping," I muttered from under the blanket. "Oh, really?" She plopped onto the couch beside me, crossing her arms. "What would you call it?" I exhaled, staring at the ceiling. "Strategizing," Ashley snorted. "Is that what we're calling watching sad movies and ignoring job applications now?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, she wasn't wrong. I had no plan, no job, no home. The life I'd spent years building had vanished overnight, and I didn't know how to start over. Ashley, being Ashley, didn't wait for me to figure it out. She grabbed her laptop, pulled up a listing, and spun it toward me. It was a small commercial space for rent in downtown, expensive but not completely impossible. "Before you say no," she said, holding up a hand, "hear me out." I didn't respond, but she took my silence as permission to continue. "Remember those organic skincare products you used to make, the ones everyone at your wedding raved about?" I nodded slowly. "It started as a hobby, Susan," I argued, "not a business." "But it could be." She leaned forward, eyes alight with that unwavering belief she had in me. "Think about it. There's a huge market for sustainable beauty products, and you already have the perfect formula." I stared at the listing, at the rental price that made my stomach tighten. "I don't have the money, or the experience, or what?" she challenged. "The right last name?" The words hit harder than I expected. Ashley softened. "Stop letting them live rent-free in your head." The bell above the coffee shop door chimed as we walked in later that afternoon. I wasn't sold on Ashley's idea, but I was desperate for caffeine and distraction. What I got instead was fate intervening. "Excuse me?" I turned to see a man in a crisp navy suit sitting at the corner table, his laptop open, a half-empty espresso in front of him. His gaze was sharp, assessing, but not unkind. "I couldn't help overhearing your conversation about natural skincare products," he said. I flushed, embarrassed. "I'm so sorry if we were too loud." He waved it off. "No, not at all. I'm Bradley. I work in business development, and I'm always looking for innovative ideas. Would you mind sharing more about your products?" I hesitated, but before I could decline, Ashley jumped in. "She'd love to," she said, shooting me a pointed look. "In fact, she has samples in her bag right now." I wanted to murder her. Instead, I found myself sitting across from Bradley, pulling out a small jar of the face cream I always carried. He examined it carefully, asking detailed questions about ingredients, production costs, and target market. His eyes lit up when I explained my commitment to sustainable packaging. "You know," he said, sliding a business card across the table, "I mentor startups in their early stages. Your idea has potential. But more importantly, you have something rare, passion and authenticity." I stared at the card. Why would you want to help me? Bradley smiled. "Because 15 years ago, someone took a chance on me when I was starting out. Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you." I didn't realize it at the time, but that moment, sitting in a coffee shop with a stranger who saw something in me, was the turning point. That night, I dug out my old recipe journal. Pages of handwritten notes, careful formulations, cost calculations. It was all there, buried under the weight of a life I had once thought I needed to fit into. I had stopped making skincare products because Austin's family found my kitchen experiments embarrassing. But they weren't embarrassing, they were mine. The next morning, I called Bradley. 3 months later, I stood in a small, sunlit workspace, surrounded by mixing equipment, natural ingredients, and the overwhelming scent of lavender and rose oil. Bradley had helped me secure a small business loan and guided me through the licensing process. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't perfect, but it was mine. "To Freeman Naturals," Ashley said, raising a glass of cheap champagne as we celebrated the official opening. "You did it, girl, we did it," I corrected, including Bradley in the toast. Bradley shook his head. "Actually, you did it. You just needed to believe it was possible." He set down his glass and slid a folder across the table. "There's a trade show next month," he said. "It's the perfect opportunity to launch your brand." I flipped through the information. My stomach twisted. "Isn't this the one where all the luxury beauty brands showcase?" "Yes." I swallowed hard. "I'm not ready for that." Bradley met my gaze evenly. "You're more ready than you think. Success is the best revenge, Susan. Trust me." As I looked around at my small but growing business, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Pride. Real, unfiltered pride. "Okay," I said, straightening my shoulders. "Sign me up." Ashley grinned. "The Dawsons won't know what hit them." "No," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. "They won't. You don't truly know what you're made of until you're standing at the edge of failure." For months, I had poured everything into Freeman Naturals, my time, my energy, the last remnants of my savings. But no matter how many nights I spent perfecting formulations, no matter how much research I did into organic ingredients and sustainable packaging, one brutal reality remained. Starting a business from scratch was hell. Suppliers turned me away because I didn't have the industry clout or the minimum order requirements. Buyers barely gave me a second glance, too focused on the big names dominating the market. Every phone call that ended in rejection felt like another weight pressing down on my chest, a reminder of the uphill battle I was fighting. There were moments, more than I care to admit, when I doubted myself. Maybe the Dawsons were right, maybe I didn't belong in this world. But every time I let those thoughts creep in, Ashley was there to shove them right back out. "Get out of your own head, Susan," she'd say. "You have something they don't. Authenticity. People will see that. You just have to keep going." And Ashley introduced me to Bradley, a calm, methodical guy, never let me wallow. "This is normal," he assured me, when I stared at the dwindling numbers in our account, panic curling in my gut. Every startup struggles in the beginning, keep pushing forward. So I did, and then the opportunity of a lifetime came knocking. A trade show, not just any trade show, the biggest beauty industry expo of the year. The kind of event where multi-million-dollar brands unveiled their latest innovations, where buyers and investors scouted for the next big thing. It was a long shot. We had a tiny booth in a back corner of the exhibition hall, surrounded by towering high-end displays with flashing screens and impossibly glamorous models. Compared to them, my minimalist setup looked like a lemonade stand at a 5-star restaurant. But I was here, and I wasn't going down without a fight. The first day was brutal. Buyers breezed past us, drawn to the flashier booths, barely sparing a glance at our products. I could feel the doubt creeping in again, a tight knot in my stomach, and then, just as I was regaining my footing, the past came strolling right up to my booth, wrapped in designer silk and dripping in condescension. Anna. The woman Shirley had always envisioned as the perfect wife for Austin, the daughter of another elite family, groomed from birth to fit into the Dawson's world, and apparently the new face of Luxe Beauty. "Wow," she said, surveying my booth with an expression of mock sympathy. "This is quaint." I forced a tight smile. "Can I help you with something?" "Oh, I'm not here to buy," she said with a laugh. "Luxe Beauty is launching an exclusive organic line next month. I just wanted to see what the competition was up to." I kept my expression neutral, but something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. Competition? Luxe Beauty wasn't known for organic products. They specialized in mass-produced, chemical-laden formulas. What the hell were they doing with an organic line? Anna's gaze flicked to my sample jars, lingering on them just a second too long. Then she smiled, sweet, polished, and utterly fake. "Well," she said, turning to leave, "good luck with your little business." And with that, she was gone, leaving behind nothing but a lingering sense of unease. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I found out why. I was sitting in the office, still just a tiny rented space above a bakery, when Ashley stormed in, her face red with fury. "You are not going to believe this," she said, slamming her laptop onto my desk. I frowned and leaned in, watching as she pulled up an article about Luxe Beauty's new product launch. And then I saw it. The ingredient list, the formulations, the packaging, everything was mine, word for word. Formula for formula, it was a blatant theft. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring at the screen. My ears were ringing, my hands trembled. "They stole it," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "They stole my work." Ashley looked at me, waiting for the explosion. But it didn't come, because something inside me had shifted. I wasn't that girl crying on her best friend's couch anymore. I was someone else now. I reached for my phone and dialed Bradley. "We have a problem," I said. His voice was calm, but I could hear the edge in it. Not for long. Bradley had anticipated this. He had seen the way Anna lingered at our booth, the way her eyes darted to my formulations, the way she left too quickly. And so, months ago, before we even stepped foot into that trade show, he had quietly patented every single one of my formulations, which meant Luxe Beauty wasn't just guilty of corporate theft, they were guilty of patent infringement. The timing couldn't have been better. Luxe Beauty was hosting a grand unveiling at an elite gala showcasing their groundbreaking new organic skincare line. Bradley had a better idea. We were going to expose them at the trade show in front of the entire industry, and that's exactly what we did. The next day, we returned to the exhibition hall, acting as if nothing had happened. Luxe Beauty's grand presentation was scheduled for the afternoon, and the crowd was buzzing. Anna took the stage, radiant, smug, announcing the revolutionary new product line, and then, right as the screen behind her displayed their formulas, a new slide cut in. A legal notice, a formal cease and desist letter. The murmurs in the audience turned to gasps. A man in a sleek black suit stepped onto the stage beside Anna. "I represent Freeman Naturals' legal team," he announced, his voice carrying through the room. "Luxe Beauty's formulations, which they are presenting today, are protected under patent number 7893324, registered 6 months ago." Anna's expression crumbled. Shirley, who was seated in the VIP section, went rigid. Austin, standing in the back, looked like someone had knocked the air out of him. Journalists scrambled to capture the moment. Phones flashed, cameras rolled. Anna tried to recover. "This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "This is illegal," the lawyer finished for her. "Yes. And we will be pursuing full damages." The trade show erupted. By the end of the day, every major industry news outlet had picked up the story. Luxe Beauty's stocks plummeted, buyers cancelled their orders. Meanwhile, Freeman Naturals, the the tiny brand no one had taken seriously, was suddenly the most talked about name in sustainable beauty. Bradley turned to me, a slow smile forming. "Looks like we just became the biggest story of the year," he murmured. I exhaled, my pulse still hammering. I had thought revenge would feel like rage, but this felt like victory. Success has a funny way of making the past come knocking. The invitation arrived in an elegant cream-colored envelope, thick and expensive, with gold embossed lettering that practically screamed old money. The Dawson Foundation cordially invites you to the annual Innovation and Philanthropy Gala. I almost laughed. For a second, I thought it was a joke, some cruel irony the universe had thrown my way, but no. There it was, my name printed in flawless script, listed as one of the keynote speakers for the evening. I reread the fine print. Sponsored by the Dawson Family Foundation. Of course. It had been over a year since I walked out of that apartment, ringless and shattered, leaving Austin and his picture-perfect family behind. Since then, I had rebuilt my life piece by piece, rising from nothing to create Freeman Naturals, a brand that now had industry giants scrambling to keep up. I had moved forward. And yet, there they were. Right in my path again, Bradley leaned against my desk, skimming the invitation with a smirk. "You know you could always decline." I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment settle in my chest. "No," I said, "I have to go." Ashley, sitting cross-legged on my couch, shot me a knowing look. "You're not thinking about him, are you?" "No." I shook my head. This isn't about Austin, and it wasn't. This was about me. It was about standing in the very room where they once decided I wasn't good enough and showing them exactly how wrong they had been. The Grand Plaza Hotel was as opulent as I remembered. Marble floors gleaming under the chandelier lights, servers in crisp white gloves carrying trays of champagne. Everything was pristine, polished, perfect. Just like the Dawsons, I spotted them almost immediately. Shirley, regal as ever, draped in pearls and effortless disdain. Gabriel standing beside her, looking a little older, a little more worn, but still carrying the weight of a lifetime of privilege. And Austin. For a second, I thought I imagined him, but no, he was there, standing just a few feet away, watching me. And then he was moving. I turned, walking briskly toward the hall where speakers were preparing, but his voice caught me. "Susan!" I froze. I should have kept going. I should have pretended I didn't hear him. But instead I turned slowly and met the eyes of the man who had once shattered me. Austin looked different. Older, maybe. Less polished than I remembered, as though the cracks in his perfect world had started to show. "You came?" he said, almost as if he couldn't believe it. I lifted a brow. Of course I did. He hesitated, taking in my gown, my posture, the undeniable proof that I was no longer the girl who had begged him to stay. He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his jaw. "I don't know where to start." "Try the beginning," I said coolly. "You always did like taking the easy way out." His jaw tightened. I made a mistake. I let out a breath of laughter, sharp and cold. "Which one? Leaving me? Not defending me? Letting your mother talk about me like I was nothing?" He swallowed hard. "I let them control me. I let them tell me who I should be with, what I should want." His voice dropped. "And I lost you." Something flickered inside me, an old ache, a wound that had long since turned into a scar. "You didn't lose me," I corrected. "You chose to let me go." His eyes darkened. "I didn't know how to fight for you." I tilted my head, examining him. "And now," his throat bobbed, "now I'd do anything to change it." But before I could respond, a sharp voice sliced through the tension. "Well!" Charlie's heels clicked against the floor as she approached, her smile frosted and thin. "You certainly know how to make an entrance." I turned to face her fully. "Mrs. Dawson," I said smoothly, "still picking out your son's partners for him?" Her eyes flashed. "I see success hasn't changed your attitude." "No," I said, taking a slow sip of champagne. "It's just made me less inclined to tolerate condescension." Gabriel stepped forward then, clearing his throat. Susan, his voice lacked the cold edge I remembered. It's been a long time. I met his gaze evenly. Yes, it has. There was something almost unreadable in his expression. Regret, maybe, or acknowledgement of the girl he had once dismissed as insignificant, standing before him now as an equal. Or perhaps as something greater. You've done well for yourself, he admitted. Impressive, really. I lifted a brow. And yet, you sound surprised. His lips pressed into a thin line. I won't pretend we treated you fairly. No, you didn't, I said bluntly. But you did teach me a valuable lesson. Shirley folded her arms. And what's that? I smiled, slow and deliberate. That I never needed your acceptance in the first place. The stage lights were warm against my skin as I took my place behind the podium. The ballroom, filled with the city's elite, fell into expectant silence. I took a steady breath. Then I began. A year ago, I was told I wasn't good enough, I said, my voice carrying across the room, that my background, my hard work, my ambition, none of it mattered because I didn't fit into a certain mold. I let my gaze sweep over the crowd, pausing just long enough to let the weight of my words settle. But success isn't about where you come from. It's about what you build, what you fight for, what you refuse to let go of. A murmur rippled through the audience. I saw Shirley shift uncomfortably, Gabriel watching me with something like realization dawning in his expression. Austin, his eyes never left me. When I started Freeman Naturals, no one believed it would last, I continued. They said I was playing pretend, that I didn't belong in this world. I smiled then. Funny, isn't it? How quickly things change. The applause started slow, then thundered through the ballroom. I stepped back, exhaling. It was done, and I had won. The night was nearly over when I felt Austin's presence beside me again. Susan! His voice was rough, raw. I turned. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said, his hands clenched at his sides, but I need you to know. I still love you. My chest tightened, but not in the way it once would have. I studied him, the man I had once given my whole heart to, and then softly I said the words that freed me completely. I don't love you anymore, Austin. His breath hitched. We could try again? I shook my head. No, we couldn't. He exhaled, defeated. So this is it, I smiled. Genuine, free. This was over a long time ago. And with that, I turned away, stepping into the life I had built with my own hands. Behind me, Austin Darson, once the center of my world, became nothing more than a chapter I had already finished. Success isn't loud, it doesn't need to be, it just exists. Undeniable, untouchable. And there's nothing more satisfying than watching the people who doubted you realize they bet on the wrong outcome. Freeman Naturals had started as nothing, just an idea, a quiet dream I had whispered to myself in the dark. Now it was everywhere. Beauty magazines called us the next big thing. Sustainable retailers lined up for exclusive deals, and high-end department stores, the same ones that once wouldn't give me the time of day, were now fighting to stock our products. Orders poured in. Investors took notice. We weren't just competing anymore, we were dominating, and just when I thought life couldn't get any more ironic, Shirley Dawson came calling. The moment she stepped into my office, dressed in her signature pearls and tailored cashmere, the air shifted. For a long time, Shirley had been untouchable, untouchably above me. Now she was standing in my space, in a company I had built from nothing, the balance of power permanently tilted in my favor. Miss Freeman, she said smoothly. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch. Shirley. Her lips pursed slightly at my lack of deference. But then, in a moment I never could have imagined a year ago, she exhaled and did the unthinkable. She apologized. I misjudged you, she admitted, her voice even, but I saw the tension in her jaw, the effort it took to say those words. I let my prejudice blind me to what you were capable of. If it were me back then, I would have enjoyed that moment. I would have wanted more, to see her truly humbled, to make her feel the weight of what she had done. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I had already won. I tilted my head. And what changed your mind? My granddaughter. She sighed, shaking her head. She asked me why we treat people differently because of where they come from. I didn't have an answer that didn't make me ashamed. I studied her, searching for the catch, the manipulation, but for the first time, I saw something real in her. I won't ask for forgiveness, she continued, but I am asking for a second chance, to do something meaningful. The Dawson Foundation wants to fund a program for young entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds, and I'd like you to be a part of it. I let her words settle. The Dawsons, the very family that had once discarded me like I was nothing, were now asking for my help. Ashley, sitting beside me, arched a brow but said nothing, waiting for my reaction. I leaned forward, tapping my fingers against the desk. You're asking me to help people like me, the people you once looked down on? Shirley met my gaze. Yes. I considered it for a long moment. Then, slowly, I nodded. I'm in. Shirley blinked, clearly surprised by my lack of hesitation. But on one condition, I added. Her eyes narrowed slightly. And that is? I run the selection committee, I said firmly. I decide who gets funding. No strings, no favors, no old money politics. We help the ones who deserve it. A pause. Then Shirley extended her hand. Agreed. I shook it, sealing a deal I never thought I would make. Ashley, watching the exchange, finally broke her silence. Wow, she murmured. Hell just froze over. I smirked. Maybe it had. While Freeman Naturals soared, those who had once tried to crush me fell hard. Anna's scandal hadn't just ruined Lux Beauty's organic line, it had destroyed her. The public eviscerated her after the trade show debacle. She was forced to resign and Lux Beauty's stocks tanked. Investors fled. I didn't hear from her after that, but I imagined that for the first time in her life, she was experiencing something she had never known before: failure. As for Austin, well, I ran into him once, weeks after the gala. He was sitting alone at a cafe, staring at his phone, looking lost in a way that was almost painful. I should have walked away, but instead I paused beside his table. He looked up, startled. Susan, he breathed, standing too quickly, like he hadn't expected to see me again. I arched a brow. Austin. He hesitated, eyes searching mine for something I no longer had to give. I wanted to say congratulations, he finally said. You deserve it. I nodded, accepting the words. Thank you. For a second, he looked like he wanted to say more, to ask for more. But he didn't, because he knew I wasn't his to chase anymore. And then, in a quiet voice, he asked, Are you happy? The answer came easier than I expected. Yes, I said, I am. He exhaled, nodding, then dropped his gaze. I left him there at a table for one, watching me walk away for the last time. A month later, I stood on the balcony of my new headquarters, the city stretching out before me, the neon glow of the Freeman Naturals logo burning bright against the night sky. Inside, my team was celebrating. Contracts signed, deals closed, shelves being stocked across the country with products that bore my name. Ashley joined me, handing me a glass of champagne. She grinned. Look at you, CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, breaking generational wealth barriers, changing the industry, and to think you were crying on my couch a year ago. I laughed, shaking my head. Yeah. She studied me for a second, then raised her glass. You did it. I clinked mine against hers. No, I said, smiling as I looked out over everything I had built. I'm just getting started. And as I stood there, feeling completely, utterly free, I realized something. I didn't need revenge anymore. Because this life, this success, this moment was better than revenge could ever be. What do you think about this story? Please share your feelings in the comment section below.